Hey, I'm James from Smokin' Dad Barbecue, and are you new to Kamado style cooking, or do you already have a Kamado Joe and you want to learn how to operate it better? I'm going to share you everything I've learned over 10 years of cooking on Kamado style cookers to help make your life easier and get the food you want. So let's do a quick overview. I've already got a meal set up and going on this one, but while I'm waiting, I'm going to do a fresh setup on the Kamado Joe behind me, and I'll show you everything you need to know from cleaning to setting up, building your fire for a nice low slow cook. I'll also point out some of those things that you want to do a little bit differently if you're aiming for a hot and fast cook. So let me move the camera, join me over here, we'll get started. Alright, so before we jump in and start building our fire, I just want to point out a couple of the components of the Kamado Joe and why they really matter. So up top, you have your control tower top. If you have an older version Kamado Joe, you might have a daisy wheel. If you have an older Big Green Egg, you might also have a daisy wheel style control. What that is an air vent to help control your temperatures. On the bottom, you have a draft door. And so I like to think of the two as a gas pedal and a brake pedal. So on the bottom, you have your gas pedal. You open it wide open, your foot's on the accelerator, and on the top, if you close this all the way down, it's like riding the brake pedal really hard. So depending on how powerful your car is, you'd be going nowhere. That's about what would happen here. If we had our bottom draft door all the way open and our top all the way closed, our fire would go out. And so it's this balance between how much gas you want to give it to how much you want to slow things down. This is your fine, precise temperature control. So if you're struggling with getting your temperatures, just think about if you want more heat, you need more air. Start with the bottom, give more air. If it's going too far beyond what you want and you want to slow things down, use your fine control on the top to help reduce the heat. So let's dive in and I'll show you some of the internal components. Okay, first we're going to remove our divide and conquer system. I'm just shaking that out so all the loose ash falls to the bottom and we can collect it in our ash pan. Let me show you what that looks like. So you can see all the ash, for the most part, is collected in that ash pan. I've removed from Kamado Joe the stock accessory that collects the ash and helps shape it down into the ash removal pan. I've done that because I notice over time things inevitably get stuck behind it and then it's hard to clean out behind it. Whereas this, I have to use gloves and clean every time, but I can get that really clean. Let me show you how I do that. So now we have the inside of our Kamado Joe all nice and clean. So there's going to be a really good airflow. What I'm going to do now is we're going to install the charcoal basket back, then the divide and conquer, and I'll show you how to set up for a low and slow cook. So you can't see on the camera here, but each of these little notches will hook into the charcoal basket that I just installed. So when I turn it in and I slide those into place, this is all now connected as one unit and I can move it into position. So to unhook, you just put some pressure down, release, and then twist those so they're out. And I also have, from a previous cook, my X-ring accessory. We'll add that back in a second as soon as we've added some charcoal. Alright, so I've just gone and added 2 or 3 pieces of Kamado Joe Big Block. And while I have you here, I'll just point out that's about the right amount of charcoal for 3-4 hours. You should still be able to see some air gaps at the bottom. If you need more charcoal, you're burning a little bit hotter, a little bit faster, you can always add some more later. But the number one mistake that I see new grill owners do is pack this to the brim full of charcoal. And if you do that, you're going to have potentially some airflow problems. Plus, it's hard to predict where the fire is going to burn. If it burns, down to the front, the back, the side, etc., it just makes it a little bit more difficult to control nice even heat. Where if you build the coals like you're building a campfire, and you use good charcoal like I'm using here today, you'll have no problem maintaining those temperatures for a long time. Now for lighting your charcoal, you can do a couple things. You can use an electric loop lighter or something like that, where you just hold it down in position and light it, or you use a fire starter. Today, just for this video, since I don't have my outdoor extension cord out in winter, I'm going to use a fire starter cube. Okay, so far whether if we're doing a hot and fast or a low and slow, the setup is the same. So if you saw the text and you skipped ahead in the video to this point where you're already comfortable on how to clean it out, you already have a general idea of what the top and the bottom vents are doing, and you already know how to arrange coal for a good fire. You're joining me here now on a way to stabilize your Kamado Joe for very consistent ease of operation. So what I like to do is we're going to install the X-ring, and we're going to then install the half moon dividers, but I'm going to have them in a pizza pie open configuration until we get the heat in the Kamado Joe that we want. And what that's going to do is that's going to make sure that we have heat in the dome, heat in our stones, and then we're not yo-yoing with the temperature. If you put in the stones and they're nice and closed at the top, you're going to have a really hot fire underneath with a bit of a cap holding all that heat in, and then you'll see your temperature hit 225 or something like that in the dome. You say, okay, great, I've got my temperature. You'll throw on your food, you go in for 40 minutes, you come back out, and all of a sudden your grill's 350. You say, oh no, it's too much. And you close your vents, and next thing you know, you're flirting with extinguishing your fire, and you're in this fight back and forth. Once you get this down, I often now will set up my Kamado Joe at night. I'll put on something like a brisket or pork shoulders, go to bed, wake up 7-8 hours later the next morning, and the temperature is exactly where I left it. So hope that this tip serves you well and you're able to get some hassle-free hours of steady operation. So right now we've got the vent all the way open on the top, the vent on the draft all the way open, and we're going to do that till we start getting a little bit closer. But I'm going to go ahead now and install our grid accessories. All right, that's it. So as you can see, we've got everything in the Kamado Joe Divide and Conquer. I installed the X-ring accessory on the middle tier. This is a Kamado Joe Classic Series 3, so there's 3 tiers. I do that just because I like the extra clearance that I can have from the charcoal, and I still have a good gap to the food surface area. It really doesn't matter, it's just a matter of preference, but I love the consistency and airflow that I get with this setup. So we're going to go ahead and close our dome, and we're going to let this come up to temperature. And so for today, I'm just going to simulate if we were doing low and slow at around 250 degrees. So once we get a little bit closer to 250 degrees, I'll pick you up and show you how to start adjusting your bottom draft door and how to adjust your control tower top vent so that the temperature lands and stays exactly where you want it. All right, our grill is up to temperature. Apologize, we're losing light quickly, but I'll do the best to stand under the light here so you can still see and hear what's going on. So I don't know if you can see on the camera, but our grill is reading 300 degrees. That's a little bit warmer than what we want. That's okay. Remember, this is not the true temperature. We have the plates in an open configuration, so any flames are coming up and giving an artificially high reading. I normally want to start this process anywhere from hitting my target temperature to 20-30 degrees beyond. 50 is okay. Even the more example here that I can show you how to adjust and land where we want. So what I'm going to do first is we're going to close our plates into the resting position that we want. So we're going to push those right against one another. Then I'm going to close the bottom draft door to about 2 fingers width. This is my go-to setting for low and slow. If you have really thin, really wide fingers, you adjust as necessary, but for me, it's about 2 fingers width. Let's go ahead and slide that into place. We're going to close our control tower top, and I'm going to want to bring that to just past the first line on my control tower top. So we're going to let that stabilize. But before I do, let me just bring the camera a little bit closer and I can show you what I was seeing inside. Okay, so as you can see, I pushed the 2 diffuser plates together, installed our grid, so we have nice, even space all the way around, so we're getting good airflow. All right, so it's been about an hour and a half since I last saw you, and the temperature hasn't moved a budge since we left it. Let me bring it a little bit closer. I don't know if the camera is going to pick that up as it's got nighttime darkness here. we're aiming to set up for 250, and we are sitting right on 250, right on the button. And so again, we put the control tower top on the first wheel position, and then we put the bottom draft door vent to about 2 fingers width. So since I'm not cooking anything on this tonight, I'm going to go ahead and open it up and just show you how much charcoal still remains after we lit it about an hour and a half, 2 hours ago. So let me show you. And again, the reason we're doing this is just to show the charcoal efficiency, that we don't need to pack this thing full to the brim of charcoal when we're filling it up. So just to make it easier to grab with heat-proof gloves, I like to slide one grate back so we can get under the divide and conquer and just twist and slide it out. There we go. And so if you remember at the beginning, we added about 2 or 3 chunks of charcoal. And there we are. We still have our 2 large chunks, and the 1 chunk that we put on the bottom is lit and ignited. And so this will go for another 6 hours or so maybe. And so that's plenty of charcoal for most low and slow cooks. If you're doing ribs, if you're doing a pork shoulder, you can do that 6 to 8 hours. If you're doing something overnight, you want a little bit more, no problem, go ahead and add a little bit more. So thanks so much for tuning in and checking out this video. This again has been the most requested question that I get, which is, James, how do I set up a Kamado cooker for low and slow operation and not have to worry about the temperature shooting up, going down? If you want to see some other tips and tricks around hot and fast or different grid configurations and different types of cooks, let me know in the comments below. I'd be more than happy to make a video for you. Until next time, please hit that like and subscribe button, and we'll see you then.